Hi everyone and welcome to my review of a Danish gangster film directed by Nicolas Winding Refn, his debut film actually, Pusher. So I've been mentioning in some of my previous videos that I would eventually get around to reviewing all of Nicolas Winding Refn's films because I recently went through all of his films because I've kind of loved him for a while. After I saw Bronson and Drive I decided right, I need to check out all of his films, so I did. One of the first films that I checked out, well yeah, more than one film really, the Pusher trilogy, but today I'll be reviewing just the first one. So without giving too much away, it's basically about a drug dealer named Frank who starts to encounter a few problems, which includes trying to pay back a large debt to his boss Milo. And yeah, it basically explores a lot of the crime underworld in Copenhagen. So some of the characters that are in the film are Frank, of course, who I mentioned, who is played by Kim Bodnia, very well in this actually, I would say. And then you have, of course, everyone's heard of Mads Mikkelsen, who plays Tony, I think it is Tony or Tony, one of the two. And yeah, of course, everyone knows him, but this was actually one of his first films that he was in. Milo, who is played by Zlatko Buric, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who, yeah, as I mentioned, is the boss of Frank. So yeah, as I mentioned, Nicolas Winding Refn, I love what drives him, I love the topics that he does, I love how real a lot of his films are. This in particular, I mean, the whole trilogy is just unbelievably real. And I just absolutely love Nicolas Winding Refn. I know he's controversial for his violence, mainly, sorry. But you know what? I mean, as much as people want to deny it, violence can be amazing in films, and I think in a lot of Nicolas Winding Refn's films, his violence is amazing, brutal, shocking, impactful, and for the most part, apart from maybe one or two of his films, meaningful. You know, it actually means something. If it's violence that doesn't mean anything, then that's the kind of violence that you just, pointless. It's just violence for the sake of violence. But the way Nicolas Winding Refn handles his violence, and in some of these, the Pusher trilogy, for the most part, he does it really well. So yeah, Pusher. So basically, from the very opening titles, I was hooked. I mean, I just absolutely loved the music. Oh my god, I've listened to the music so many times, the theme for this, for the whole trilogy. And there's basically like character title cards as well, like it says, Frank, Milo, it comes up with the characters and then does the title just to really get you in the mood, in the right mindset for the film. It does that instantly. It basically tells you it's going to be chaotic, it's going to be fun, it's going to be maybe brutal, relentless. I just absolutely love films that do that have title credits to get you in the mood for the film. It does that so well. In fact, Nicolas Winding Refn has done that a lot in his films, particularly, which I'll mention in a different film, in a different video, Drive. I mean, the opening titles in that are some of the best I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, right from the beginning as well, you can you can tell that this is a debut film. I mean, there's a lot of handheld camera work and choppy editing, jump cuts, maybe if you want to call it that. But it does kind of add a certain style and grittiness and realism to the film. So the first 45 minutes of this film, I have to say, were amazing. Honestly, very little to flaw. I mean, it was funny, stylish, intense, fun, and pretty much every single thing that I wanted this film to be. And more in some ways. It had some real, really similar themes and similarities to Trainspotting, which is one of my absolute favourite films of all time, so that's only a good thing. It has some similarities there. In fact, I did see some things online saying that it kind of is Denmark's answer to Trainspotting. Yeah, I mean, you can see that from one of the chase scenes, and this is very, very similar to the opening of Trainspotting. But it never feels like it's just a copycat, it is more, it is definitely its own thing. I just absolutely love, basically, how it kind of follows Frank around through his day as he plans out deals with customers and then reports back to his boss Milo. Played excellent. It was just really just enthralling to watch. You constantly were engaged. In fact, I've noticed that a lot. Nicolas Winding Refn, even his bad films, I was constantly immersed due to some of his camera work and cinematography. At the same time, as I mentioned earlier, throughout these parts and throughout the whole film actually, basically that's not a spoiler. That is just the plot of the film. He owes money to Milo, so that's constantly a thing as well. Whenever he's reporting back to Milo, Milo keeps bringing it up, and it makes for some kind of intense and slightly funny, actually, sometimes, conversations. At the same time, he's kind of hanging about with his friend Tony, who's played by Mads Mikkelsen, as I mentioned earlier. And oh my god, Mads Mikkelsen in this, who plays Tony, he is by far my favourite character in the film. He is amazing, he is hilarious, he's crazy, he's constantly just, his conversations with Frank in the car, absolutely hilarious. And then just so many things that happen I won't say, but Yeah, no, it was absolutely hysterical, a lot of the bits of it. Basically, whenever he was on the screen, he stole the show. He is amazing. He's one of my favourite actors working today. And this is, yeah, just a brilliant performance in this. Completely different to quite a lot of his other performances where it's more serious. This one's more kind of comical. More comical than Pusha 2, which is definitely more serious than that. But yeah, yeah, he's just so good in this. But after the first 45 minutes, unfortunately, because of certain things, it just kind of becomes a little bit more bland. It kind of dips in quality. It becomes a little bit more bland. There's a romance which is involved more, which was fine, but I mean, it just wasn't really that interesting, to be honest. I didn't really. Frank became a bit more bland, to be honest. Which yeah, I know it's about, you know, his character development and that, but I just don't think it was pulled off very well in those parts. I think, you know, yeah, it just, unfortunately, it did become a little bit more bland. It still managed to be good. The film managed to be good, but it just wasn't as good as that first half. The style still remains consistent, so there's that, and it is pretty shocking as well, particularly towards the end of the film, without giving anything away. But yeah, so it still constantly keeps you a bit more, it keeps you engaged, but just that romance really lets it down, and yeah, it's not nearly as well paced as the first half of the film, a bit inconsistent, to be honest. But I do think this is a very, very good film, a very good debut from Nicolas Winding Refn. I love it. It's so real, the realism in it. I mean, just the grittiness and some of the conversations in the alleyway, some of the drug deals, some of just the camera work and some of the more violent scenes in the film. Just really, really well done. And I think Nicolas Winding Refn, yeah, really, I know he was obviously going for a more realistic film with this, he definitely pulled that off. And yeah, I think this is a really good film. The first half was amazing. The second half was pretty good. So I think overall it is a very good film. And I do think that you should definitely watch this, and then the other films as well. I'll be reviewing Pusha 2 soon as well, which I won't say anything, but let's just say most people prefer to Pusha 1 and say it's one of the best sequels. People that have actually seen it, because it's not really that well viewed. But yeah, Pusha 1, I'm going to give an 8.4 out of 10. So yeah, of course I will be reviewing Pusha 2 soon. Because of course I'm going to be reviewing all of Nicolas Winding Refn's films. But my next video is probably going to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe films ranked. I've now seen every single one of them, and I'm a big fan of superhero films in general. And I'm a pretty big fan of the MCU, well yeah, huge fan of the MCU films when they're done right as well. So yeah, I'm going to be ranking some of them. So yeah, thank you for watching my review of Pusha, directed by Nicolas Winding Refn, and I look forward to some other videos.